Welcome to Wisdom on the Front Porch. Subscribe, ring the bell, like, and share the wisdom. Pull up a chair and join us with today's guest.
I'm ready when you are.
Welcome to another amazing episode of Wisdom on the Front Porch. So pull up a chair. We're going to sit on my front porch today with Jim. Jim, I'm so glad you're here. I love the colorful background you have. That's just wonderful. And
Thank you.
tell our audience just a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why do you do it.
Sure, I'd love to. First off, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm super honored to sit and have this conversation. And my background is varied, to say the least. I've spent a lot of time in a whole different variety of businesses, everything from selling car stereos to sushi and Chinese food to, man, you name it, I've done it.
Wow.
Um, so definitely a wide variety in the business world. But I dedicate the majority of my time now to sitting down and helping people figure out the life part of success. Not so much, hey, how to be successful in terms of dollars in the bank or what kind of cars in your driveway, but how do you feel at the end of the day? And are you actually showing up for yourself and your family and like the things that actually matter? And yeah, it's been a long journey, and I'm sure that we'll get into some of the reasons why. But that's where I spend most of my time now is having conversations and helping people kind of show up for themselves.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that. Um, so I see you work with founders. Better, I wrote it down here. You wrote it for me actually. You work with founders, business owners, which includes entrepreneurs, of course, leaders who want to clarify their message, tell their story well, and reach a broader audience without losing sight of family, values, or purpose. And that is so important. I mean, I remember when I first started out, this was a whole new world to me. And I would spend 80 to 120 hours a week. I am not kidding. I wrote it down. I can prove it. I've got the daily calendar that I had. I mean, I've got every 15 minutes filled in. There's just no gaps. And after 6 months of that, I just kind of had to just stop and not stop and start over again, but stop and say, what am I doing? Where am I going? What direction am I taking? And have I gotten detoured? So, and at the time, I didn't have a coach. I had people that were kind of mentoring me. I was just mostly in webinars and summits because those were all brand new to me. I didn't even understand what they all were. And I was learning myself. You know, I had had a summit, but I know there's so much more that goes on with it. Um, but but yeah, definitely getting a coach to help you navigate all of that. I always like the saying that I am a travel guide. I'm not a travel agent. And the difference is the travel guide has been there themselves. They've gone through it. They know all the places to stay away from, the places to go to. They know what's happening. A travel agent just says, oh, you want to go here? Well, do you want to go by bus, plane, or train? And they'll give you all the places, and they don't know what place is really good or which isn't. Or this may be the best hotel, but you're going to get the best service and the most comfortable beds at this place, which is why you guide. And I see that's what you are. You are actually a journey guide, a business guide, a life guide, because you help us keep balance between family, between self-care, not burning ourselves out. So I'm going to let you talk.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that analogy. And I think I would definitely push back a little bit on the concept of balance, right? Because I think that's kind of one of the biggest things. I know we're nitpicking words, but
No, you're not. And you're right. I should have used harmony. I like the way you
yeah,
harmonize this together better than balance, because balance can just be juggling at times. We don't want to do that. So no, I appreciate.
yeah, for sure. And to be honest, I think that's one of the biggest struggles that I see with like the entrepreneurial spirit, right? And the person who's super driven and motivated because, you know, for that person, it's kind of part of your nature. You want to be able to hustle and grind and control your way to success. and you feel like, anything is possible if you just decide it's possible and work hard enough. And to a degree, that's accurate, but kind of at what cost, right?
Right.
And what I feel like happens often, and what I see when I'm working with people is they try and apply that same mentality to this concept of balance and work-life balance, and they try to go all in on being the best at what they do in terms of their professional life, and then apply that same all in to their family. But it's in short spurts, right? They try and be this super amazing parent within the confines of like 3 hours a day. And it's, first of all, it's exhausting to yourself to try and wear that many hats and switch who you are and how you show up rapidly. Super exhausting. And, I'm sure going back to your calendar where you got to kind of schedule everything down to brushing your teeth, like it's a thing and it's exhausting to try and maintain. So for me, that's kind of where I push back on the balance aspect of it and help people figure out like, hey, how do you just show up as you in every area? Right? How can you get out of this hustle and grind mentality where, yes, you can still and should still be super successful at what you do, but it comes from a place of ease. And, I'm not saying that it's super easy to be successful, right? I'm not trying to knock how much effort it takes, but there's a difference when you are working within your gift, right? And you're sharing your purpose with the world rather than trying to just hustle and grind your way to profitability. So, that's
Absolutely.
ultimately what I see is really helping people kind of unwind that mentality that, it's the only way to success is for me to be the first one and last one out and sacrifice sleep and sacrifice X, Y, and Z. And it's just, it's a way, right? It's certainly a viable path if you want to do that, but just understand the consequence of doing that. You're going to burn yourself out and you're going to miss out on a tremendous amount of stuff. So it's really the concept of me as a guide is to say, hey, I did that for a long time. Didn't end super well. So let me show you kind of the lessons I learned along the way and at least give you some context to figure out, hey, maybe you can take some of my failures, my lessons I learned, and help, get yourself a little further ahead before you make those same mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said that we need to have that peace in us. Peace is my word. What a difference between just going and trying and hard and you're getting there. Maybe you are accomplishing, but you can't just breathe. You don't have that peace in you that, whatever challenges come today, I'm going to get it. No big deal. And sometimes they're a little tough, but they're challenges and we're learning and that's what it's all about. But you got to have that peace inside of you that says, it's okay. I'm going to get this. I don't need to push myself so hard that everything I've sacrificed is now going to be taken away because my health is bad, or I've lost my
Right.
family because I ignored them. My kids don't want anything to do with me. My spouse is leaving me or has left me. We don't want to do that. We don't want to alienate the people around us that are actually our support group. And if you have people around you that aren't supporting you, find out one, why they're not supporting you. And two, if they're not supporting you because they don't have support for you, maybe distance yourself a little bit from them when it comes to the business. Um, because, some people in their best of hearts end up discouraging you instead of supporting you. And find people who do
Yeah.
support you. It's important to have
Let
those
me
around you.
let me push back on that point just a little bit too.
Okay, good.
I think that there's a part of that there are people around you who generally would support you if two things. One is they had any idea what the heck you were actually doing. I
Right.
tend to think a lot of us move so fast and we have an idea in our head and it makes sense to us, but no one else has any clue what we're doing, right? We're
Right.
moving at the speed of light and trying
Uh-huh.
to accomplish X, Y, and Z, and the people around us are like, man, I don't no clue what the heck you're doing. I'll support you, but I don't know how, right? I don't know what to do.
Right. Right.
So I think it's letting people into that understanding of kind of where you're at and what support actually even means. And that's not to say there's not going to be some people around you who are going to cast doubt and tell you, hey, this thing isn't going to work, right? There's always going to be those people. But I think you need to take an honest look at also showing up for yourself first, right? If you're not able to properly support you, how do you expect other people to, right? So it to
Right.
me always goes back to showing up for yourself first, understanding like, hey, where are you? What do you need? What does success even look and feel like in this moment? And if you could define that, then you can tell other people, and at least they've got a shot of showing up for you.
Yeah, lead by example.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And you brought up a really good point. We need to be serving others. Serving doesn't mean being a slave or just doing for other people and not ever getting anything in return. That's not what it's about. Because when you truly serve others, you get a lot back. It's just amazing how such a I'm just going to say simple concept can give so much back into your own life. So what does serving others truly mean to you?
being able to be so secure in who you are and where you're at that you can show up and serve people for where they need you to show up and serve. And I feel like that's an important distinction to make because for a lot of people, they will serve others for this kind of sneaky, self-indulgent plan. Hey, I'm going to show up and serve this person because I know if I do, I'll get this in return.
Right,
And it's sort of this difficult spot to get to, and it requires a whole lot of reps and a whole lot of self improvement to get to that spot where you feel so secure in who you are and where you're at in your own journey that you don't necessarily need to consider how that person can serve you if you serve them first, right? Where it doesn't become transactional in your
right,
relationships.
right. That's a great word right
And
there. Serving is not
and
transactional.
yeah, so to me, like when you look at serving, it's what can I do for you?
Yeah,
Simple as that, right? What is it that I can offer to you that can make your life better in some way, shape, or form? And it's one-sided, and it's a difficult thing to do because there's some fear attached to that. Hey, if I'm dedicating myself to serving other people, how am I going to get served? Right? There's that
right.
initial fear of what's going to happen to me.
Exactly. And I want to ask you about that. Because I was just thinking about that. Because I know there's times I am just serving and serving and serving others, and it could be 6 weeks later, and I'm like, I kind of forgot about me, you know. Now I need to get others to serve me. And so how do you navigate that?
Yeah. So I think that's super important to fill your own cup first there.
Okay.
To kind of know what actually fills your cup. Like, what is it that brings you joy and gratitude and satisfaction? Focus on being good for yourself first, right? So if you can start your day and your week and your month, whatever it's going to be, by making sure that hey, you're getting the things in your life that you need, whether that's reflection, whether that's exercise, whether whatever it is. But if you can figure out, hey, what is the thing that fills me up? Focus on that first. And for a lot of people, that might feel selfish, right? Especially when you look at like the parent aspect. You think about, oh, I got to do all this stuff for my kids.
Hmm.
Guess what, man? If you're not going to show up for yourself first, you're not going to be good for your kids either.
No, because
So I know it's
watching
super
you.
difficult.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
that leader by example again. And and if they're always taking from you, which means you're always giving them, you're thinking of serving as giving, then they're never going to learn to be grateful for what they're getting because they
right.
expect it now from you. They don't see it as you are doing something for them because you want to do it, because it's a part of you serving them, and you're not teaching them to serve others. And so that can, kind of get you later on in life. But you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, it's a difficult mindset to get into if you spent so long kind of in the opposite end of that.
Mhm.
But truly, I think, once you can start to do the reps, and all of this, in my opinion, is a matter of just doing the reps to it. Like it never gets easy.
Right.
It gets easier, right? But it's never going to be easy. You're always going to run up against some level of struggle or frustration. You just get better at handling it, right? At understanding it, giving it context. And to me, again, it's a matter of putting in the reps. And that's, why I think initially it's really important you get that coach, mentor, guide next to you to kind of help support you and spot the weight while you're still fresh. Before you have the experience to know, hey, how do I handle this? You've got
Right,
someone by your side to kind of help walk you through that initial steps until you get a little bit of momentum where it starts to be a little bit easier. And again, I'm not saying this process is easy by any means, right? Doing work on yourself is super frustrating and sometimes discouraging, but it's also really rewarding. And you get to a certain spot where you realize, like, man, I am super happy and grateful for the way that my life is right now, where I get to spend my time hanging out in a podcast conversation, right? This for me is work, or is it play?
right.
I don't know, can't tell the difference. And that's an awesome way to live your life where you don't have to worry about, hey, which version of Jim do I have to be today?
Yeah, but
You
they
could
say
just be
when you
you.
enjoy your work, it's not like work at all. Some people say I've
Yeah,
never worked a day in my life because I enjoy what I do.
right. And I truly think if you can figure out what brings you joy, if you could be grateful for all the stuff that comes your way, whether initially you think it's good or not, but that mindset of gratitude truly helps you to be in a better spot and look at things in a brighter way. And that brings about this certain momentum that will help you move through the rest of your day in a way that you just can't replicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, One of the things that I noticed with me recently is I'm getting kind of hangry at the end of the day. I'm hungry. I'm it's making me cranky because I didn't eat right. And I'm just kind of going through a fast. So I'm doing a lot of learning along the way. And I realized what good is doing a fast if I'm going to be angry and upset at people. So I need to look at what's really going on. Am I not doing it properly? And this goes for our business. If we're just so drug out at the end of our work day and we're entrepreneurs, so I know there's a lot on our shoulders, but if we aren't enjoying it, if we are just working so hard at it, what are we not doing to self-care ourselves to create a margin so we don't have that? You know, um, I remember a preacher once talking about how you see margins in a book around the words. And if the words go all the way to the edge of the paper, maybe some of the words are cut off, it has no margins. So in our own life, where are our margins? Do we have big, wide margins that we can write stuff in? We can change part of the day. We can change our schedule. If something happens with the family, no problem. I'll come get you because your tire went flat. Things like that. But if we have our margins so tight, there's no room for anything else. And we've got to do that self-care. We've got to schedule our business. I actually have, and I've shown this before, and for those who are listening to the audio, I'm holding up my calendar and I've got to have a written calendar besides the other ones, just keep everything there. And when I see it on paper, I can see the white space, they call it, the space that nothing's in there. But I know in that white space, that's when I'm doing my other work. But I can also see where I've scheduled time for my granddaughter. I've scheduled time with my friend. I scheduled time. I went and helped my neighbor weed their pathway the other day. She's an older neighbor. It's like, why not? That's getting out there and helping other people. But I also see where I'm meeting with other businesses and business leaders, and we're doing think tanks, or we're just talking with each other. It's like, how's your business been going? What's been happening with it? How are you doing? How's your family? Getting in on all of that. I think a lot of times, and I know it is necessary that we have to keep business, but a lot of times we forget that the other person in front of us is also just a human being like we are. And it doesn't mean we have to get into their personal life all the time. My husband, he goes, I will talk with him after we've been to an event or something, and I'll say something, kind of about the person's personal life. I said, did you know? And he'll say, how did you even know that? You barely talk to that person. And it's like, I don't know, he's a human being. I just ask these questions. But I also know about what they do in their business and how that works too. So
Yeah.
it's, and I think that's a skill I've developed over the years. And most everything we do can be learned. We have to remember that just because we're not good at one thing doesn't mean we can't learn it. And maybe there's always going to be somebody better. That's good because then we hire them to do it, and that takes pressure off of us.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, you know, I find a couple things with that, right? So number one is if you ever actually spend time listening to other people talk,
Hmm.
and I mean a conversation you're not involved in, right? You're looking at two other people having a conversation next to you.
Right.
More often than not, those people are not having a dialogue. They're having two separate monologues. And I want you to really think about that the next time that you're watching it, because what winds up happening is person A says, whatever their story is, and person B doesn't really respond. They just reiterate their version of that story in their own life, right? It's, oh yeah, that happened to me because I did X, Y, and Z. And these people are not listening to each other. And oftentimes what I find, and one of the reasons maybe you're able to do this, if you spend enough time where you personally feel loved, appreciated, seen, and heard, you don't seek that from other people in relationship. So what winds up happening is you're able to show up in that conversation and actually genuinely listen because you don't need to vent your life to them, right? You feel seen and heard already. You're not seeking that from them in that conversation. So what winds up happening is you're able to hear things that most people don't. And to me, it's this amazing life hack, right? When you again fill up your own cup first and you feel loved, appreciated, seen, and heard, you don't need that from other people. So you're able to see them at a deeper level and you build relationships faster. And again, it's this thing that just continues to build momentum and continues to like really push your life forward. But again, it really starts with showing up for yourself first.
Yeah, and that's very true because I do remember times when I just felt a burden and I'm talking to somebody and they're going through something similar and I really wanted to share my story too and try to figure things out together, but it was obvious they didn't want to hear my story. So I thought, now what do I do? And
Yeah.
I decided I'm going to listen to them because obviously they really need to be heard right now. And unless it's a person that tells the same story every time, every time, every time, I'm going to give them that. If it's a person saying the same story every time, I try to change the subject to something else. But it's true. We may be going through something and it may be similar to somebody else, but maybe we need to just listen to them because when we listen to them, then they're getting filled up and then they're going to have time to listen to us. And
Yeah.
or maybe it's just not the right person for us to talk to at that moment. Sometimes we have to think that if this isn't working out, and this works in a lot of different aspects of business, if we're pushing and it's not working, stop pushing and find out maybe this isn't the right timing, this isn't the right place, this isn't the right person, and just let it be. And maybe at that time you serve instead of receive.
Right. 100%. Because, I think otherwise what winds up happening is you develop this mindset of you're not that important, or
Yeah,
your story doesn't matter. And sometimes you just need to understand that context aspect of it, that it's not that you don't matter, it's not that you're not important, it's not that what you're struggling with isn't real.
right.
It's you're just kind of venting into the wrong room. And sometimes that's a lesson we need to learn, right? It's understanding that vents often let out into the other room. So maybe you're just needing to vent outside for a second, other than into a different room.
There, that's a really good point, and it's okay to do that. That's what walks are for.
Yeah.
I was just talking with a podcast guest a couple of weeks ago, talking about my grandfather used to take walks, and I would watch him, and he'd be talking, his arms would be going, and uh, and my grandma, she would go, "What's that you say, Pa?" Because these are my grandparents, so this was a while back, and then she would just laugh because sometimes he would just, oh, like that. But, and I asked her one time, I go, so what's he talking about? And she says, he's trying to work something out. She goes, sometimes he's praying, but most of the time he's trying to figure something out, and he can do that through praying or talking to God, or he's just talking out loud, trying to figure it all out. And I thought, that's pretty cool because he wasn't, as you said, venting in a room. He was venting outside because he needed a solution, but he needed to work it out inside his mind. And I know sometimes
Right.
that's what we do with other people is we're talking to them trying to work it out, but sometimes we need to do it by ourselves.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, especially if you consider this, um, you know, picture you've got two rooms in your house that have vents in the ceiling and they are forcing air at each other. What's going to happen? Neither one's going to actually vent, and they're just going to create pressure in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at relationships in the same way, if both people are trying to vent to each other at the same time, it's not going to work. And you're going to start to burn yourselves out, and it's going to cause frustration.
Yeah.
And ultimately, no one's going to feel seen and heard. So it does come down to figuring out, hey, how do I manage that? Which can be super difficult when you don't feel like you have anywhere to turn to, you don't know what to do. And that's, again, why I enjoy spending my time doing this, because there are a tremendous amount of people who are incredibly gifted and have a lot to share with the world, but they just don't know that initial step, right? And being able to kind of show up for yourself first and figure out, yeah, your story is actually super important. Yes, it matters. Yes, you matter, right? All those things are really important to understand. But if no one's told you that, it can feel impossible. It can feel ridiculous, right? You could feel like, man, I'm not as good as this person because
Oh,
of
yeah.
all the reasons you can make up. But ultimately, I really feel like more people need to just understand how freaking important they actually are to the scheme of things,
Yes.
and not just in terms of, hey, how much money you can bring in or what kind of publicity you can get on social media or whatever definition you want to define success by. Like, all of us have a tremendous role to play and a gift to give. And, just trying to understand, hey, what the heck that gift is and sharing it freely with the world is, one of the most important things you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of our young people today now who don't know how to turn off the digital device, don't know how to talk with each other. My husband and I were just talking about this. Our granddaughter is here, her mom's deployed, and so she's still talking with her friends back east. She's talking with her friends that are here, and my husband says, why is not anybody excited to go get their driver's license or excited to go to work to get their first car or any of that like it used to be when we were kids? And I said, because it's all different now. And he says, yeah, he goes, these screen times, I'm just going to use that to cover everything, my words, and they've taken over. You don't see kids going out to each other's houses like they used to do. It's all right there on the phone. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to go do anything. And I think it's creating a disservice to them that they're engaging in a lot of ways. They're still communicating. There's still some really great things that happen with it, but everything in moderation. It's like having desserts every time. I remember watching a show where um, the royalty all of a sudden could have all these desserts and everything. They had no idea how bad they were for their systems. But then that's all they had, and they weren't feeling good and they were getting sick and they didn't know why. It's because there was no moderation there. And we have to have moderation in our lives and our business. I think that's what you're talking about here is that harmony between everything. Not too much of everything, but not too little of anything.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because I truly don't think screen time is bad. Too
Right.
much, right, is bad. And, I think if you use it correctly, if you understand how to leverage it, it can help you build relationships. It can help you spend some time with people maybe you're not physically able to be around. But when it becomes kind of the default connection method, or it becomes your entire world, then it becomes a problem. But ultimately, where does that come from? In my opinion, it comes from other people around you also not showing up.
Yes.
Comes from not showing up for yourself and seeing, hey, you do have some value to share with the world. And I think if we look at it as parents, right? Because I've got two young kids, 12 and 9, who do spend a lot of time talking to their friends and doing other things. You consider, hey, am I setting them up for failure or success? Like, how do you manage this?
Right.
And I think giving them a healthy example of, hey, yeah, you can use it for a certain amount of time. This is how you establish that relationship. This is how you get out and do it in the real world, right? This is how you take kind of that little conversation you started here and extend it into, uh, into seeing each other in person, or, making relationships with people across the world who you can now go visit. Um, but I think had I not been able to spend time with them, right, and kind of guide them along that process,
Right.
just said, hey, dad's busy, go entertain yourself, and leave them
Yeah.
to their own devices, what are they going to do?
Yes.
So, again, I think it comes to that personal accountability and showing up where it matters.
Yeah, and I loved you brought up that they can meet these people in different countries, their friends who travel back and forth. And that's really great because then they can go visit them in person and they've already, established a relationship. Um, how do we do that as entrepreneurs? I mean, we talk with people all over the world. So when we go to events, we say, hey, I'm going to be here, can we go get a cup of coffee or something? Or even here within the US, or if you're in Canada, within Canada, whichever country you're in, and we say, "Hey, I'm going to be in your state this time. Can we grab a cup of coffee or go out to dinner? Or is there some place you want to show me while we're there?" Trying to establish those relationships and build upon. Because I think once we have that human connection, beyond just the screen connection, I think it starts making a difference in how we serve and how we remember each other. Um, And the reason I say human connection, I just seen yesterday that somebody was talking about when you're talking with chat, put a slash human after it and see what happens. And I thought that's interesting because that's what a lot of people leave out doing with EI, AI, and and in business when you're doing a lot of us entrepreneurs are all online. We don't have a brick and mortar building. And so, are we leaving out that human factor when we're dealing with other people and their business and serving them?
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes to really that intentionality. So just looking at, hey, how do you show up in your business or your relationships, and not necessarily thinking about, hey, how do you check the box quicker? Because it's ultimately what I think a lot of people do with AI is figure out how to check the box faster. So whether it comes down to, hey, how do I write a product description? How do I write an email? How do I do X, Y, and Z? You're ultimately using it to check the box faster. Most people are not spending time to figure out, hey, how do I love deeper? How do I show up better in a relationship? How do I serve at a greater scale? It's really spent, hey, how do I get this done so I can go do something else that you know, I can go doom scroll because I've gotten my work done faster.
There you go.
So
I can
it's
go out and go fishing.
ultimately I think a lot about the intentionality behind how you use these tools.
Yeah.
And for me, I I like to suggest a different definition of AI, and that's authenticity and intentionality.
Mm.
So if you can master those two skills, right? Understanding who the heck you are and showing up as that every day and living your life within a set amount of intentionality, right, behind your actions, you'll be in a wonderful spot, right? And for all the people who are concerned about, hey, what is AI going to do in the future? Yes, it's a real concern. The concern grows greater when you remove yourself from the situation, right? And I want to consider this part of it. There are so many people who are concerned about, hey, AI is going to replace me. If you are actively replacing yourself first, if you are leveraging your personality to, hey, what does AI say? If you're outsourcing your decision making to an AI, what is AI doing for you? You're actively replacing yourself, whether you realize it or not. right? So start with
Interesting. Yeah.
the authenticity and intentionality of showing up in your own life first. Yes, AI is an amazing tool. You can leverage it for a lot of cool things. Don't ever let it replace you. Okay. And that's the part that I think a lot of people miss. They are actively replacing themselves because they don't know who they are. And so for me, it's all about that, right? Understanding of who the heck you are, showing up for yourself first. That gives you some like form of guardrail
And
to be able to
that's what you
understand
do, isn't it?
how
You
to use it.
help
Yeah,
people find themselves, define who they are, and help them not get lost in it and be sure of that, which I think is amazing. I mean, there's a lot of us going around thinking we know who we are, we're doing what we're doing, and at some point it's like, this is not working. Why? I know what I'm doing is right. I know who I am, I thought. But maybe we need to get a hold of you and just do a little, what do they have oh, you see these come through every once in a while. Like, are you ADHD or are you this? Maybe we need to do that little test with you first and see, do I really know who I am?
yeah,
Am I getting the most out of my business and out of myself? Because maybe I missed a part of who I really am. Maybe there's something that I've hidden away or I put on the back burner and I'll get to that later. Maybe later's right now. And you can help with all of that, right?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's ultimately to me again why I do what I do is those little conversations to me are like my favorite thing to do. It I enjoy that more and it's more fulfilling than, any amount of sales or revenue or whatever else because it unlocks so much potential in that person and seeing a person unlock and not be confined to this definition of themselves that someone else gave them, but seeing them step into like who they were truly called to be and what that looks like in life and the joy that they have after that. And then consider the butterfly effect of how that person shows up in a relationship for their family, for their
Right.
coworkers, for whoever else, right? That chain effect of what happens after that is freaking awesome. So yes, I highly encourage if, trying to figure out right where you're at in life right now doesn't feel like you're super fulfilled, super happy. It doesn't feel like the best thing in the world. Start the conversation, right? Let's figure out how to actually move forward in that because I can promise you, yeah, it's going to be a little frustrating. Yes, it's going to be a little difficult. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it is going to be the most free and most joy filled you'll ever feel in your life. So, encouragement to just kind of put in the reps and have someone by your side to do it initially. Because once you kind of get over that initial hurdle and get a little bit of momentum, you're going to start to seek that stuff out, which I know sounds crazy to someone who's sitting there thinking, like, I don't look forward to that at all. But I will tell you, after doing this enough times, it is 100% of the time, once you start to really understand how this works, you seek it out. And it's fun after that.
That is, when you do all these like personality tests for work or they're trying to improve morale or you do it for college or even high school tests, it says, what are you really good at? What's the best thing you do? Well, I was always a great encourager. I didn't realize until I'd taken a webinar, a 5-day webinar from John Tellerico. And he says, go ask the people you know, ask your family, ask them what they think you're the best at. And my brother said, from the time you were little, you've always encouraged me. Totally shocked me because we've never talked about that before. And I thought it was something I only learned as an adult. And here he said, I've been doing it all my life. My sister, she says, yeah, you encourage everybody. And it's like, okay, because I love doing that. That's just nothing lights me up more than that. But to hear that it was a part of who I've always been, that was a real shocker for me. And it's like, maybe I need to do something with this. Maybe I need to do something about it and and I really rallied around it and kept it in the forefront because that's what I do want to do. I want people to be encouraged. I want to offer that hope. And someone once said to me, "Oh, hope is just something nice to say. It's not real. It's not tangible." And I go, "Oh, no, hope is very tangible. Hope is the one thing that pull people out of the pit when there's nothing else and no one else there. That hope is what keeps you going. That hope is what you see at the end of the tunnel, knowing it's not a train, it's a light. And it is the end of the tunnel. Um, So yeah, hope is very tangible, and thinking it's just something nice to say no, that shows that you've got some deeper things inside you need to look at, and and that's okay because
Yeah.
we all can improve ourselves. There's no shame in doing that.
Yeah. 100%. I agree. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. So tell us how we can get a hold of you.
So jimsabellico.com. You can look me up, Jim Sabellico. I'm the only one. So you'll find me, that's for sure. But yeah, you can find me on socials. You can grab my book, Show Up More. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever. Or just reach out. Genuinely, truly, if you have a question, concern, you just need someone to talk to, reach out. I love nothing more than to have those conversations because I know what they're worth. And so if that's the thing that you're struggling with and you need someone to talk to, by all means, I'm here.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Jim, and thank your audience for sitting on our front porch today. Remember, there's always an empty chair here waiting for you, and we're glad you're here, and we'll see you next time on Wisdom on the Front Porch.
Thank you, my Front Porch friends and neighbors, for pulling up a chair with me and my guest today on Wisdom on the Front Porch. Now, if you've got value from this conversation, would you do me a favor? Leave a quick review, then share it with someone you know who could use some inspiration. It helps more friends find their seat on the porch. And hey, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss what's next. Until then, keep the porch light on for new wisdom every time you show up. Your seat's always here for you on the porch.